So
I know.
We're good.
Okay, call the meeting to order, 6 p.m., 13th. First is audience of citizens. I
None.
don't see anyone here, but I do see someone on the screen.
That's just Ally at our office.
Oh, okay.
Trying
All right.
to learn more about what we do.
Any audience citizens? Okay, hearing none.
One for punishment.
We can go to approval of minutes, September 8th.
Make a motion, we approve September 8th minutes.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I just have a couple of things. One is in 4A, Debbie, down below, the bottom half of the paragraph. Chairman Bove asked if the revenue numbers were net income to town, meaning less expenses, and I thought, Debbie, you stated it was difficult to get the expenses, you know, to
No, I said I hadn't
identify.
figured it out, because we were down one camp. I hired extra staff to make sure we had enough coverage in case we were short, so
Yeah.
I never figured out the difference on it. I hired the staff that I felt we needed to run the camp.
Right, but I thought you said it was difficult to get the costs of running the camper. I mean.
No, I just said I didn't do it. I didn't figure it out.
Okay, can you put that in the minutes? The comment was stated in the past, the revenue has been pretty close. I don't.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, she said that.
I just don't have
What
specific.
is the
to
revenue is
covering
close
the
to net
rev-
income?
Yes. But I just didn't figure it out for this past.
Okay, so maybe we could just say has been pretty close to net income?
Yeah.
Meaning there's very little expenses. That's the way I
Yes,
take it.
yeah.
Okay. And then there was a comment for Eileen, and it didn't have, I don't believe it had the, yeah, okay, B, in 5B. The Scoglio update is the same. They will meet with Eileen. Maybe you could put in her title and last name. I assume that's a principal?
Yeah. So I use this EUSTIS.
And I assume you'll,
Just principal.
although it's not stated, but I assume the athletic director as well.
Yeah, he was there too. I'll give you his name. I'll look it up and spell it.
Okay. Those are my two comments. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. Well, let's take a vote. We have a motion on the floor as is for the minutes. Take a vote on that. All in favor with the minutes as typed? Hearing none. All unapproved? Aye. Okay, so can we have a motion with the two changes to be made?
Tony and Andrew, you guys didn't vote on this.
I do not approve it.
Andrew?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you.
No one asked for names, so.
Right. Okay, so can I just have another motion with the changes?
I'll make a motion that we accept the changes in.
To 4A and B.
4A and B, I'm sorry, yep,
5B.
yeah.
4A and 5B.
4A and 5B.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, great. Nothing on consent agenda? Okay, fee schedule.
So gave it out, asked for review. Any questions, anything you want clarified? There's a couple things we were gonna highlight, but we'll take questions first.
So just, you've added the senior season pass for the pools.
Yep,
So how will that work? I know there was, discussion about grandparents and all that, so just.
No, that's different. That's a caregiver. This is, we had a
Okay.
couple seniors had approached me during the summer, just saying that, they have a fixed income and that the pass, the $45 pass they felt was a little high for a senior. They had asked us to submit a pass for a senior citizen, which I had done years ago, and it was rejected by the council. So I said we would put it in We're also, if you look under the child daily rate, we were doing /senior so that they would pay a lesser daily rate to go in, to just make it a little bit easier for them financially.
So, okay, so the senior pass
Was 45.
is new,
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
and Jen, just correct me, the first column is what you're recommending, the second column,
The first column is what the new fee will be.
yeah,
The third column is also what the new fee will be. It's just how Kevin does the spreadsheet. And the right column is what the change is. So
what's the second column?
the one that's empty,
It's a spreadsheet given to us by the finance department. We have no control over it.
So is the first and second column always to be the same?
yes.
I just thought that was last year, so.
No, that's, the way they do it is if I change something in the first column, it automatically changes in the third column. And then the fourth and the sixth automatically put what the difference is.
Okay, so this is new, $30 year over year,
Yep, that's new.
that's
That
right.
should have been in orange. I apologize.
Okay,
And then including the seniors as a child rate instead of an adult rate for daily fees. That was the other change we put in.
so that's the adult rate.
That's no, the adult rate is $10. The senior rate we included as the same as the child rate to give them a break on the daily. fees.
So line two
I'm sorry,
ninety-four.
294.
294, the fee does not change. That always used to read child resident was $5. We are adding senior resident for $5 as well. So that's why the fee doesn't change. We've just changed the wording of the fee to include senior with a child. So the senior, if you're 5 years old or if you're 65 years old, you're only
60,
paying
60.
60. You're only paying $5.
Okay,
55 years, you gotta pay the full.
Correct.
And 60 is based on the senior center. That's the age that they
Yeah,
determine
that's good. I like
things
it.
by. So,
and if you're non-resident, you pay 10 as a child and 10 as a senior, 60 or over.
yes.
Okay, any thought about just saying caregiver? Like, I know the age, I know there's grandparents.
Caregiver's totally different. We can, that's not on the fee schedule. Debbie can explain what her thoughts are on that and why we didn't include it on the fee schedule.
Right, so Jen and I had talked about it and we felt that there still should be a fee for a caregiver. And we already have fees established. So what we can do is offer, if someone comes in and says, my ex-husband lives out of town, but I want to have him able to bring my daughter to the pool, then we can issue a pass in his name. He'd have to come in and show us his license. And then he would have this caregiver pass and he would pay the non-resident fee because he's a non-resident, but we would give him the pass to allow him in because he wasn't in the company of a resident. So that's our policy. A non-resident has to be accompanied by an adult resident the whole time. This would allow him to come in and bring his daughter, but he'd have to pay the non-resident fee every time he showed up.
Which is exactly what the situation was and what he was willing to pay.
Right, but that's, I mean, so he shouldn't get a free pass because
Right.
we do have fees established. So we would have a record like this, Joe Smith lives in Wallingford, but does have a caregiver card to use to show, to be able to pay to bring his daughter in, but he would pay a non-resident fee because he's a non-resident.
How are you gonna get that info out there?
We'll put it when we advertise the pool passes.
So adding the caregiver and they come into Parks and Rec and get a caregiver card.
So, yeah, so
Is that
so
what
the
happens?
parent the person will have to notify us that they want to add this person to their household as a caregiver to be able to bring their child, because that's what they need to do, is bring their child to the pool. So we would have a record of the person. We would probably
Yeah.
limit how many we would do per household, but then that way, if a grandparent wanted to do it, okay, we'll give the grandparent, but then they would have to pay if they didn't want to buy a pass, they would have to pay
Yeah,
the
if
fee.
they're over 60
Yeah.
and they're from out of town, they pay the $10 rate,
Right,
right?
Right.
Okay, so this is like a policy change that's gonna go in, you're gonna explain the caregiver,
Yeah, it's not part of this because there's no fee attached, so that there's nothing that needs to be approved.
but it
This is a
changes
fee
our
po-
policy.
But that's not what this is. This is
Yeah.
fees.
No,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, no, we're gonna discuss it further, but this, just so you know, that's why we
Right,
didn't
so-
include it with this.
Right,
there's
I
no
know you
fee.
have policies that
Yeah.
we've, you know, reviewed and all
Yeah.
that, so you're gonna be changing those.
Yes,
And that wording will come.
yes,
Okay,
but doesn't need to be in here because there's no fee attached to that,
okay.
for that.
So on 294 and 296, I'm just trying to understand this, so those are not new,
Those are just changes,
the
right?
the wording is.
You just
it's
added-
it's
wording is
more
different.
inclusive, it's adding a senior to it.
Yeah, the
Adding the
child
word
rate
senior.
was there. We're just adding a senior rate.
That's what the orange represents.
okay.
So we'll just go down, it's gonna be the easiest. 298, 299 pandemic fees, we took those out because we don't run the pool like that anymore, and we're hoping that we are back to normal. 310, 311, 312, this has been in since I've started, but we've never charged anything for Veterans Park. Anytime we get a request about Veterans Park, we refer that to the Veterans Commission and Charlie Calarisi, so we figured we're not using it, let's get rid of it. 318, 319, all that is a wording change, because by the time this season, you know, this will go into effect during when hopefully Biscoglio is completed. We needed to have fees on record of what we were charging, so we just did Scalise / Biscoglio for those. 322 is Scalise, we have upped the price to $35 an hour instead of $20 an hour, and we did that because we wanted to match what we're going to charge Biscoglio, which is $35 an hour. So long story short, due to the grant wording, we can't charge, due to the grant wording, when Biscoglio is finished, we cannot charge a non-resident more than double what a resident is charged. So currently Scalise is $20 an hour for local and $70 an hour for a non-local. So in order to make it easier and make it so we can charge the right amount, we up Scalise to $35. So when Biscoglio opens, that will also be $35 for a local. So the fees for all turf fields will match, which, as you can see in the comparison, is a lot of what the other towns do. All their turf fields are the same price.
How did that get into the grant, that they limited, I mean, that wasn't in the grant that we got originally with Scalise.
I don't know. I don't think we had a grant. Did we have a grant to fund Scalise?
We did get some funds from the state, but I don't know how.
I don't know. It's been in the grant from day one, and I guess it's common for when they give money for a field. That's what I've been told. So, so then 324 is just reflective of that change, because 8 hours for a day, but we give them a deal because they're booking at 8 hours. We actually are only charging 6 hours. So that's just the difference in that price.
So we're going up $90 for the local full day.
Yes, because the hourly price is 35 an hour. So 35 times 6 is 210. You're getting it for 8 hours plus, but we're only charging you 6. We're giving you a deal for booking it for the whole day. Line number 333, we just put in parentheses grass fields as opposed to turf fields. 337, 339. I'm gonna let Stephen talk about the non-local fee for grass fields going from $50 an hour to $75 an hour.
Right, so when you looked at a couple of the other towns, what they were, most towns were between 50 and 100. We grabbed right in the middle of it and went with 75. We figured it takes right around, so if somebody rents Zip Deli, Sage 1, Sage 2, any of the softball fields, any of the baseball field, it takes from start to finish grounds guy about 2 hours. From the time they leave our shop till they get there, groom it, line it, get back to our shop, it's right around 2 hours. Our guys are right around $35 an hour, so it's kind of a wash. It kind of weighs itself out. Before, we were only charging $50 an hour and we were losing money on the back end. And our fields, like we've always said, are overly rented. And we're trying to figure out why our fields are rented more than surrounding towns. So I think as we come more in line with what those other towns are charging, maybe we'll see a reduction in the usage on ours.
Any questions, comments?
Just going back to Scalise and Biscoglio, though, these rates for Biscoglio will happen now. Even
No.
though it's not
No.
turf?
No, we'll not have
It
to,
will be under the grass fields
correct,
until.
until it's
such time.
converted, yes.
So I'm just, at 318, 319, I'm just looking at the wording. So should we change?
No, because we have
Oh, I
field
see, it's
renters,
out, I see, it's out in the margin.
grass fields.
And I believe this doesn't take,
This takes effect in February once, yeah, so spring season will be reflective of these costs. Good, okay. Line 356, the outside deck for Pistol Creek, we went up $5 just because I think we said we haven't raised it in a while.
Yeah, we haven't raised it since we started charging, and it gets some use, so just to make a little extra money. out there. We had a wedding ceremony and a bridal shower this past fall out there, so nice,
And
very well. Very well.
I apologize, the fees aren't in order and I don't know why I included all of them, so I apologize for that. But if you go to the page that has lines 261, Deb, you want to go over those? Do you have that?
Oh, just, because minimum wage continues to go up, we just did a modest $5 increase in the winter basketball and then also the summer program, which is what we've been doing the last several years.
I'm sorry, what line is that?
261. Sorry, when I put
Gotta go
them,
back to the-
I scanned them out of order. That's, and I should have been taking everything else out.
I
so.
see. When we got them, I was trying to turn I couldn't rotate them, it
Yeah.
won't rotate,
Oh.
so,
I just wanted to read it.
yeah,
That's all the changes.
and then for the adult recreational sports, no increase though?
We haven't run them for the last 2 years, so.
I'm sorry?
We haven't run the programs because of COVID for the last 2 years, so I didn't see a need to increase it.
You're gonna run the programs this year?
Well, if we get people to register, yes, we'll have a minimum for both.
Yeah, I was just thinking of your comment about costs going up, that you might want to.
Well, no, I mean, we have one person making minimum wage, I think, at covering the gym. It's a
So for
lot
the
different
adults, it's
than,
different than,
yeah, I mean, it's, if we get the 8, I think if we get the 8, we talked about 8 minimum for each program, that would cover. The expenses are not that much for those.
just a question, any thoughts or discussion on any other fees that weren't changed at all between you guys, that you had some ideas, or you just decided?
No,
not
the
to?
three of us met, we went over every single one and we feel that what we're doing.
So you feel
is-
comfortable with what you
Yeah.
presented? No discussion, okay.
I think the only other discussion we had was lights.
Yeah, you want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It costs so much to turn these lights on. We would never be able to charge an adequate fee, so there's no reason to charge an astronomical fee when it's never going to cover the cost of flipping the lights on. Like, I think flipping the lights on once at Zip Deli is 2,300, Sage One is 17, and I wanna say Scalise is 26, 27. Like, that bill will come in this month and it's right around $9,000. So no matter what we charge somebody, it's never going to. So we might as well keep it reasonable, because if you turn them on once or you turn them on 10 times, the bill's still the same. Which makes no sense for this.
So one game with lights, it's $2,700.
Yeah, about that. We should have an accurate figure on that.
Speaking of lights.
I didn't like that.
We should have an accurate figure on that
Weird.
within the next couple of months. So we're hoping,
Wow.
because there's one group using Zipadelli right now. And the group that's using Zipadelli is the only group that's using it. They're using it one night a week. So those lights have been shut off since the end of the baseball season. So when we get the September and October bill, will be really reflective of how much it's costing for them to run those lights for 8 hours that month.
Maybe in our December meeting, you could give us an update or something. If you
That's
have
what
that
I
info,
planned,
that would be great.
Yep, that's what
Yeah.
Jen and I discussed,
Yeah.
so that's the way we would go about it, just we had more accurate figures.
And then with the new scoreboard coming
Yeah.
in, those gonna increase any, significantly?
I don't
fees or
think
anything?
so. Because it's all coming out of the same, it's all coming off the same transformer as the lights on the field are. So, and it's all LED and LED doesn't draw any power.
Right, I'm thinking in the video, like if they do end up selling, ads or whatever, those are gonna not increase.
I don't, yeah, I don't.
I think we just
We'll
put
keep,
that
we'll
in
keep
the
an eye
back of
on
our
it.
minds, because as that scoreboard comes in, if the costs go up, I mean, I think it's something that has to be shared with the educational department and.
Yeah. Yep.
They're supposed to control all that, so.
3 or 4 games a week, so it's $10,000 a week just to run the lights
The lights are on every night
every night.
except Sunday.
Okay.
So, and now they'll go from 4 to 10 every day but Sunday. I think Sunday's the only one. I could be wrong on that, but
No, high school's on there Sunday night. High school goes on after Berlin football. High school's on there till 8 o'clock Sunday nights.
so it's every day. It's fine.
That is. That's amazing.
We do need a motion to accept the fee schedule discussion with permission to then present it to council.
But you actually want it because it says just discussion, okay,
Yeah,
okay, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the fee schedule with all the changes that are recommended by the staff and to be sent to the town council for approval.
I'll second
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing
Bless you.
none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe.
thank you guys.
Okay, pool discussion.
So, I mean, I put all the info in the email. Debbie, Steve and I worked on the memo back and forth numerous times. We wanted to make sure we got you all the facts and figures, what our concerns were, what our thoughts were. Our meeting with the 3 of us met with Arosh and Kevin, and this is kind of what the next step is. Give you guys the information, and a recommendation needs to be made for town council, especially because right now that pool liner is in the capital planning budget. So we just wanted to make sure you guys had all the information. Any questions about any information, feel free to ask.
So thank you, giving the history. I thought that was very interesting. So we.
And Tony, I don't know, if that was shared with the group,
No, Tony asked, so I just emailed it to him.
so I think that's something that the group should have.
I could certainly send it off to everybody.
Well, or Jen can, because
Yeah,
now
doesn't
we're
matter.
discussing it, so.
So it said on there in 2012, the pool was replastered. So what is the pool, how is it lined? Is it cement or liner?
I'm gonna try to explain this the best I can. I was not in the position I am in currently, nor was I a foreman when this all happened. So from what I understand is I was identified during the off season of 2000, you said 2011, that it needed some severe work. There used to be lights in it, there used to be tile on the floor, and the water had started to leak behind the lights and the plaster at that time started to fall in. So they went to council and I believe they asked for somewhere around $45,000 to start the renovation of the pool. As the pool renovation started, it was like every week they found something else. And by the time it was done, I believe it was in the excess of somewhere around $75,000 to replaster the inside of the pool. All they did was take gunite, like you would do on a sheetrock wall, spray it on, smooth it, and leave it. I don't know what was said to us after the pool was turned over to us, that the life expectancy on that gunite was 7 years.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
So, which would have put us to around 2018, and I think at that time I might have been transitioning into my foreman role. We hired a company to come in We think we paid somewhere around $5,300, but like Jen said, Jen and I do not have access to iVisions to be able to go back and see exactly how much work was done on this pool until we get access back into this database. We're kind of going blind, but I believe it was somewhere around $5,300 or $5,700. They came in and they chiseled 1 inch around the whole entire bottom of the pool. And they put a caulk that was supposed to prevent the water from leaking out. When
So
the,
is that the gutter that you're talking
no,
about?
so the gutter is here, and then the face of the gutter is a stainless steel.
Okay,
And as it comes down from the stainless steel, most pools have between where the cement gunite is.
Yeah.
And here, they have like a membrane that prevents water from leaking. It's like a glue or an epoxy. When that gutter system was put in, they took the gutter, they stuck it on top of the cement, and that's how it sits. So as the temperature, the sun gets hot, sun gets low, there's natural shrinkage, and then if you go look at the pool deck goes like this. So it's opening up and giving you a gap. So right now, currently, that fix only lasted a short period of time. We've been leaking water in that pool for as long as I can remember, some years different than others. So we lose, like we said, about 5 gallons of pool, so 5 gallons of water, 5 inches of water a day.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we had the company come out and look at it, of what it would cost to start to replace and repair some of these areas that you can see on the stairs that have big giant cracks in them. And the problem is every question you asked had a dollar figure to it. So it was like, okay, well, they took the hammer and went over to the side of the pool. You hear how this is hollow? Well, I don't know how hollow this is until I get in there. So that $35,000 fix could be $140,000 because you don't know. He's like, a lot of people are going to a pool, liner of a pool. So when the liner of a pool first was brought up, we were told 2020, it was right around 110, 120,000. We revisited it 2 years later after all the petroleum products went through the roof. Well, now, maybe 180, 212 was a safe number. So before we had the meeting with Kevin and Arosh, Jen and Debbie, we reached out to him again, or I reached out to him again. His answer at that time is, well, if the stairs need to be replaced, that's gonna cost. If you need to replace a wall that's going to fall, that needs to be replaced. So as this keeps going, safely, we're somewhere in the ballpark of $225,000 to $300,000 just to install a pool liner into the pool. And there's really no accurate figure of what's actually gonna cost until they start diving into the plaster and how much of the infrastructure has failed behind it. Because where is this water going? We've spent a large amount of money over the years replacing sections of the pool deck. Where the lifeguard's chair is now, that sank. Currently, where you walk through the gate, you're walking into the shallow section, there's a huge dip there. The side closest to the tennis courts / pickleball courts, that itself, as you can actually see, I mean, the gutter goes like this. Or you're looking down this way, it goes like this because the whole pool is just separated. So I wish we had more accurate numbers, and I wish I was here for 20 years involved in every part of this, coming up to where we are today, but currently I wasn't. That's all the information I know that I can speak.
What's the guarantee on the pool liner?
They'll guarantee it for 10, 15 years.
that's a long time. I mean, 10 years is, that's pretty good.
Right.
15 is a long time.
Do you happen to know? So I know in here it says, the building's currently, something, this is in a 10-year capital plan. Was there stuff for the pool for a capital plan? And that was ever forecasted or budgeted in?
I believe the pool house building stands alone. We have money in the capital for like pool deck repair, pump house repair. That's in a different line item.
Okay.
So they're both two separate.
I understand.
They're different
So if you look
departments,
at
that's
this,
why.
if you look at this one-page summary, this one-page summary is a summary of costs, expenses, and revenue and attendance at a certain point in time early this year by pool, along with the capital down below. And to the notes, if you look down where it says capital costs, there was $1.1 million for the Denmore Dinda pool. That's the second column. It's right over there. 200,000 was the liner at that time. And that was in the 23 budget, but now, 280, maybe 300 with all costs, maybe even more. So, and then there's 150,000 just for
Deck repair, full pump repairs, filter repair.
anything like that, and then 750 for the building, which was referenced in the memo.
Right.
All right, so,
And these pools, or I'm sorry, the buildings are not ADA accessible.
Nor any.
so actually that's very helpful, thank you. I guess what I was asking was previously, because we have all these buildings and pools and stuff, and I know we have a tendency moving out the capital budget. I know based from experience, there's lights scheduled for Sajox and who knows, 2025 or 50 or whatever it is. But I was just wondering if we are keeping in line with I know everybody makes decisions, right? But I'm just wondering if we were keeping in line what the proposed capital budget was for the pools, to where we get to this point, right? I mean, these things are old, they need to be fixed, they need to be repaired. I was just wondering what the annual stuff was and whether the repairs were done or whether they were pushed off or whatever. I don't know.
I've been involved, I've been with the town for quite a few years, and as long as I can remember, these pool houses have been in the capital and have gone from year to year to year to year to year to year to year. They just keep getting pushed out. It's not a priority. There's no concern, there's no red flags that it's being drawn to them, so they just keep getting pushed out. The town doesn't fund a lot of capital, so it's not gonna look to fund that. But it's been there for years, but it's not a priority for them.
Right, the liner was there in years past.
The
And that
line,
got
this is,
pushed
I
out.
believe this is the third year the liner's been put in.
Right, we've had the
So-
liner.
So the point is you build things and you don't take care of them and they fall apart, right?
Well, it's been like that here forever.
Well,
And
I'm
again, that's-
just saying,
Yeah.
well, whether it is or it isn't,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
You
pretty
don't
clear.
maintain them.
Right.
Right.
So I mean, so then I'm not trying to, it's not you, right? We'll take it first.
The
It's not you,
council,
Steve, but
right,
it's just the way.
it's the
it
town,
happens
the
to
way
be.
the town budgets capital is they don't. And what they do is they create a 10-year plan that's pushed to the side. And when they finish the fiscal year, like we did in June, they say, hey, we didn't spend in the operating budget, 2.8 million. And maybe we got some money for the recovery program and blah, blah. Okay, now let's talk about what we can afford for capital. And look to that 10-year plan, plus or minus maybe some other things that some people want. And let's divvy that up. And that's exactly what they just did. About a month ago, and they set what they're gonna spend right now. That's it. That's how they always work. Not saying it's right, I'm just saying those are what you deal with. The other thing that I'd mention is the list that you all will be getting. A lot of those are just maintenance, like I don't even call them capital. You spend $5,000 on $1 million pool, those are maintenance items that you have to do, The 65,000 that we spent on, the gunite and everything, okay, replastering it, that's capital, but those are maintenance items, but again, they're under such budget restraints that if the money's not there, they're gonna try and call it capital and then see what's left over and throw it under capital.
Makes me think that if, we were smarter in this town, that we'd actually call it maintenance instead of calling it, capital expenditure.
And
Because if we did, then it'd probably have these things would have a lot more red flags a lot quickly around them and they'd be fixed a lot sooner.
and again, those are years past, so we're dealing with what we have, it is what it is.
Right, I think that we have to look at what the present day situation is, what the possibility of what the expenses are going to be to keep this pool operational. The concerns that are coming up with staffing, if we're even going to be able to staff the pool. Does it financially make sense to keep this pool operational? And that's the question that has to be answered, basically.
So before I speak though, I'd like, any other questions, comments and
I
So-
managed with pools on them, one that I have presently. If I had my way, I would close that pool to drain. Sucks up all the unit owners' money. 20 years ago, I managed a condo complex. First thing we did was go in and close the pool. Filled it in and buried it, just to cut the cost. So thinking about this, basically on the outside, you look at it and say, really, if we're gonna be stuffing all that money into it, we're getting, what, 900 people to use it, or we're short staffing it, then, maybe we don't need to. But on the other hand, I look at it and say, this pool been there for 45 years for the community. What are we gonna do? Be penny pinchers now, and just cut it?
Just like this, do we know how many families live in the Hubbard area that go to Hubbard?
Well, it's the smallest school.
Well, I understand. Well, I have.
I know, can we let Joe, go ahead, I know he was waiting.
Yeah, so the question that I had, and it's kind of what Tony was pointing to is, so looking at the attendance, right? So 2017, it goes from 3,000 or so people down to about 1,000 people in 2021. Is that driven by primarily the condition of the facility? And have people in that neighborhood voiced or expressed strong sentiments about, hey, we live in this neighborhood, this is our pool, it needs to be maintained? Or is it just a case of lack of interest? And I would find it hard to believe if it's lack of interest, but is that decline in attendance, can we attribute that to the condition of the facility? And so if we do put money into it and we do fix it up, are you going to see that attendance improve? And are you going to see that part of the community say, hey, this is the pool in our neighborhood, we like using it? As families who live in this area, we're going to start attending the pool again.
Well, that's why I asked, that to Joe's point right there, that's why I asked you to look at it. Because I've never been there, not in 20 years,
no,
25 years.
right, no, we.
And Joe, to answer you, I don't know what the answer is. We have not received numerous, we don't receive phone calls from East Berlin residents saying, hey, fix the pool. There's no outcry for that. I do know that since 2018, we have had 159 pools put in residents' houses. We did get that number from the building department. It's a statistic. It's something to throw in there. for
Pools
you
are growing
guys.
in town.
Well, and I
The thing
don't think the work that would be proposed with the liner, they're not gonna know that. That's something, the residents aren't gonna say, oh, that went in.
They assume
We can
it's
see
safe,
the
they
difference.
assume
Yeah.
everything's.
The bathhouse is still gonna be the same bathhouse.
Yep.
The deck is still gonna be the
It's still going
same
to
deck.
physically look the same when
Yeah,
they
it's
come.
not
to the
gonna
pool.
look, I have not had anyone complain to me about, other than there have been some complaints about the bathhouses that facilities has fixed,
Yeah.
which were
Bathrooms
legitimate,
and
but I
things,
haven't really had anyone come up to me to complain about it. I mean, it's,
I actually had a complaint about Percival. They just thought it wasn't clean enough. It was from a grandmother with her granddaughter. So, I mean, it's a friend, but complained to my wife who complained to me.
Debbie, the 1,000 people at Hubbard.
Yeah.
If we were to close, if the town were to close that pool, and those 1,000 people wanted to come, are we able to take them at Percival with the 3,300? I mean, I'm just looking at.
yeah, because if you look at Percival, well, I had those,
We used to have
we didn't do the
100.
Percival,
I didn't
But-
include them on this because.
but if you look back at 2017, I mean, Percival's numbers have also gone down.
Declined.
So that's,
Right,
I mean, the 1,000 people is over a 7-week period. It's, they're
Right.
not all in like a week or whatever. I mean, you have a certain amount of people every day. Yeah, Percival can absorb more people.
right.
I mean, it's, sometimes, people don't want to cross the turnpike and go to Percival, just like they don't want to cross the turnpike and go to East Berlin, but I mean, that's.
Right.
And Kevin did make the suggestion that if the plan moves in the direction of not keeping East Berlin pool operational, perhaps we look at something a few years down the road of putting, in the capital plan, a big number into Percival to really spruce it up. And if you're only gonna have one pool in town, make it the best.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
Just
Even if. you
forwarding
kept
the
it open
information
right
that was
now,
given to
They'll
me.
just keep pushing it off anyways.
There's
They're
no,
not
there's
gonna
no,
save money.
right, there's no
There's no
promise, but you
There's no-
can keep on pushing, but
I mean,
there's
if
no
you- If you
promise.
said to me, Tony, the community center is gonna be up and operational, the brand new one with the pools, and that would be a different thought, but.
That's right.
No, they shelved
Or the
that
Y.
quick.
Or the Y, yeah. So,
It's not gonna happen.
No, it was
right,
shelved.
or the
We're not
Y.
gonna stick money on this, even if we said, let's keep it open.
So
That's what
there's a
you're finding
waiting
out,
pool there.
you're
too,
finding
right?
out the hard way that no one cares right now, except for us, it seems like.
There's a waiting pool there, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
And that's not open either, because
That
it's,
is not open.
so can you have one without the other?
No, because the entire facility is fenced in. We wouldn't open the waiting pool and close the pool because to get to the waiting pool, you're walking right by the pool. I mean,
So-
that's it.
Yeah.
To that
Triple
point
fall
though,
hazard, whether it's.
Well,
I mean,
I'm-
yeah.
go ahead.
I know Jen knows me and you guys know me from the Community and Senior Center. And I'm a big proponent of presenting a case and doing pros and cons and having like an executive summary. So I'd be glad to help when we all combine to put something together, but I think what I'd ask the staff to think about is if you closed Hubbard, what would you do with that space? Splash pads. Towns have splash pads. Towns have replaced pools with the splash pad area. Okay, so that's something, I just wouldn't go to the council personally. First of all, I wouldn't go right now with the information that we have. I think we need a lot more information, and I do think we need to visit, absolutely. Make sure we all understand the issues. And then I think we have to question, what would we do with that same space? Do you have a wading pool with a splash pad? Do you not have a wading pool? I don't have a memo in front of me, but is there a cost that we can get an estimate for the wading pool to be fixed? So, the pipes. That's another thing that, I don't know, under the underground are all these pipes. You talked about the pumps,
All the
right?
pipes
But
were replaced. I think Tony's got the paperwork in front of him.
The
I
pipes
believe they
were-
were
'cause I think
$7,300. Does that sound right?
How much?
Oh my God,
Pipes for 70, piping repair 7,000 in 2011.
That's, so repair though, they weren't replaced. I
They were
mean, this
replaced.
pool has
So what
been,
they do is
They
saw
tore up that deck.
They saw up the deck right down the center, dug down 7 or 8 feet, redid all the pipes that go back
They
into
all
the
got
plastic.
replaced.
They all got replaced.
okay, now I
That's
thought it
wrong
said
wording.
repaired and I said 7,000, because quite frankly, that's not a lot of money to replace the piping. I mean, that's
I would
good.
imagine most of the labor was done in-house and the contractor did the work
Yeah.
of replacing. That's where now we got that gray pipe on the outside of the building, because it was an old galvanized pipe, I believe. That was replaced.
Because if we're losing water, grant you that leaking around.
All
but
the
we-
water,
we
all the
can
water we
test, right?
lose
Yeah.
is underneath the gutters.
It
As soon as
definitely
we,
is.
as soon as we
tested
shut the
pipes.
pool off
Okay,
on Friday,
fair enough.
when we come in on Monday, the water level stops at the gutter.
Yeah,
And the gutter, it's clear as that. It's the cops have dove in there, they've done side tests, we've done everything possible we could do.
Yep.
And the only place it comes from is underneath the gutter.
Okay, great. The lifeguard's definitely an issue. Staffing has been a problem for
It's
you.
more the supervisors than the lifeguards.
The
It's kids
supervisor.
old enough to be there, to be in charge, to handle, you can't have high school kids do that. You have to, and my, having COVID and not hiring a year, there's a gap there. So I have as I explained, my 5 college kids. I asked each one if they planned on coming back. I know 2 said they definitely weren't. 2 said they weren't sure, and 1 is definitely. So you can't open 2 pools with 1 who's also a swim instructor, who's also a swim team coach. I mean, they can only work so many hours. I have a couple seniors who we could, work in and try to get some experience, but they've never supervised the pool. They've never supervised staff. You can't just throw these people in.
Right,
and-
you already reduced it to Monday to Friday. It's not open 7 days, right?
Correct, yep. Because I had the 5. Now, if I lose three of them. Now I have 2 people to operate 2 pools and I struggled with 5. So it's just the facts that are out there. I just want you to know the situation and, you know, it's a lot of money to put into the pool. And I don't want to be, you know,
We don't want.
I don't want to be hung up and then say like, well, you put all this money in, why can't you staff it? I mean, that's why I'm letting you know all this now, because it definitely is something that needs to be brought into the discussion.
And any decision, I'm thinking timing, any decision that we collectively make is to be implemented when? For 2023 or for 2024? I mean, the
So if
reality
you want
is-
to push, if you wanted to push the vote to November, like you said, because you want to see the pool. The idea is, because right now that money is in the budget for the pool liner, is that you would make the presentation, the recommendation to council at one of the December meetings.
And so,
Because that way, if the decision is we don't recommend the operation, the continual operation of the pool, and council agrees with that, they can repurpose that money. Because if
and what
we-
is in the 2023 budget then? Is it the 280 or is it 200? We had 200.
They're moving, it. We just submitted ours today.
that
It'll
goes
go
to
to 300.
tomorrow.
You're right. I submitted mine. It goes to 300.
It's in
Yeah,
300
that's what we put. That's
for
what-
this new budget that you're gonna be discussing in April.
Yes.
Okay, so by that time, you can't order it and get it installed. So it sounds like it'd be for 2024 in the way that,
No, because they're looking to use surplus funds to order this.
So you would get the liner, install it for this spring.
We
You
would get
have-
an RFP or an RFQ put together, put out on the street, have that come back, meet with the contractors, come up with it, look at what the lead time of the liner is, and where we are with petroleum-based products and getting some contractor in to get it done. And we would schedule the work, hopefully be done sometime in the middle of May. I don't know how long it takes to do it, but I'm saying right around 4 weeks to get it to open the middle of June, just in time of Father's Day. That would be our ideal timeline. But there's some trickery, and once again, is I've never written an RFP or an RFQ for a pool liner. And I don't know how many other towns are that our purchasing agent can reach out to, and we can compile all the information we're going to need. I imagine it's one of these things that if you miss one little blurb in this RFP or RFQ, and that becomes a change order, that change order could be substantial, because it's gonna be over $100,000, which then puts us in the prevailing wages. Like, there's a lot of key players, so we have to really do our due diligence to make sure we have one shot to get this right
Right.
and do it right.
so it's in this year's
Yes.
budget, and you have the sense that they're willing to spend it this fiscal year.
I guess,
Because-
yes. if-
So there's
if
no
that is-
discussion in
if
the
that
April
is the-
budget process then on it.
If that is the recommendation, yes.
So that would cut out the $10,000 that's coming out of where, for the,
It comes out of my, my water and sewer budget.
it comes out of your water and sewer.
Double, right? They
Right.
got a water and you got a sewer bill, but
No, there's only water because it's.
You're only
located-
charged for the
it's
water?
Because it's in Pearl.
Okay.
It's not in Kensington.
okay,
Kensington is the only.
So that would
So in
cut out that
the dollar
expense.
value, yeah,
Right,
the dollar, you can show the savings, you can get us estimated savings for that 10,000, because that comes off.
right. It would go to the normal cost. So if it was normally cost us $5,000 a year, whatever it would be, then that's what.
No, yeah, what
Well,
we're
we
saying
have
though
no,
is.
we have no quantitative number because the pool has always lost water. So
We don't know what it would cost.
No, but you're
what it-
gonna save that money.
But we wouldn't know what the
What the
rate
rate is
is,
until you
because
do
the
it.
pool's always lost water.
So we don't know what a
Yeah, but-
normal
but-
pool costs.
What
So
we've
you're
said is that
estimating
the
that it's
water,
$10,000.
Right. So like,
Yeah.
10,000 gallons.
like year one after the plaster was put in, we lost 1 inch. Year 3, we lost 2 inches. Year 5, we lost 6 inches or 7 inches. There's never been a year that I've been in the position I'm in that the pool hasn't lost water. So there's no way, like, we know it takes 200,000 gallons to fill it.
Yeah.
So we can come up with a number that 200,000 gallons. Then we could say on a day, on an average day, we have 1 inch of evaporation. So that's gonna be
right,
that many cubic feet. We can come up with that number. It's just chasing it, how accurate it's gonna be, because we also don't know what the water prices were back then for a cubic foot of water compared to what a price
Well,
of cubic.
if you know what you're
Will stop the
losing,
bleeding. You'll
Right.
stop the bleeding.
I mean, we need some kind of estimate, because you're not gonna have to budget those funds other than for evaporation.
No, we'd always like, we're not gonna lower, we won't lower our water budget because that water will be used to, irrigate fields.
Yeah, but you, right. But you don't spend it on the pools because you fix the problem. If the problem is just in the decking,
Right, but like say my water and sewer budget's $60,000.
Yeah.
Okay, and this year we spent $64,000 because we had a leak. Next year we have a wet summer and I don't run irrigation. I only might spend $40,000.
yeah, no, your
I'm not
budget, I know that.
I'm not gonna
normal
shrink
stuff.
the budget just because
Yeah, I
of
recognize
one
that.
year of Mother Nature
Right.
decided.
You know you're losing water, you just don't know how much it is.
Right.
Dollar wise.
But the amount in his
No,
budget is not
dollar
gonna
wise, you would,
change.
you know what you pay for water, go to the bill, you get a water bill.
He doesn't know because it's all together.
Yeah, no, but you
It's
know
not
you
broken
lost
out.
5 inches, an inch evaporation at least, anyway, you know, there's some estimate of,
It's
One
not,
would
it's not,
expect
it's
you
not
to
a
throw-
gargantuous number where they're gonna say all
well,
Better than none.
anyway.
It's not-
But like he said, it's not gonna change his budget. He's still gonna submit for that X
Right,
number because it's all
right,
gonna be
But
repurposed.
it's
We're
still a
spend- we're
savings.
spending somewhere else.
It's just like when
Like we
grounds
ran the
workers don't have to, when grounds workers don't have to maintain the pool. It's not like we're saving on
Budgeting
their
for
labor,
different
we're
reasons,
still
so that's
just
what it is.
repurposing them.
You're not budgeting because you're gonna lose 5 inches of water like you have in the past because you've had to, right? So you're not gonna have to do that. You might throw those monies in because you wanna, you know, some extra monies to fund, that's all, but
Can we use that money to fund staffing?
Sure, yeah,
Funding staffing isn't the problem.
that's what this,
It's finding the right people.
So
see,
So
that's
what
what,
had,
right, and again, to be fair.
Yep.
Right? These are expenses, and we have a note, you know, what it excludes, but, and I'm just throwing out, look at the water for the full year for 21 season, not this past season.
Yep.
Was only $5,000.
Yep.
For the pool.
Right.
Yeah, for the building, I assume, right, so,
Right, but that $5,000 includes the loss of 3 inches of water.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, so I'm just saying, see how small it is, right?
Right.
Okay, so,
So it'll be a lower number.
it's,
hopefully,
right. So when you look at the numbers, that to me is the answer. It's too small. The whole pool cost me $5,300 for water for the whole year. So it's a very small number.
Right.
So it ain't gonna make, you know, any difference. All right.
So
Okay, so
Joe, did you want to
just
say
some other
something?
options. Can I?
yeah, I did have a question. If we elect to close the pool, if we just say, listen, we don't want, our recommendation is not to move forward. What happens to the monies that have been budgeted for the activities on this pool? Does it stay within Parks and Rec? Does it go back to the town? Can we say we want to use the money someplace else? Or to Donna's recommendation, you know, there are some other things that we could do with this piece of property that would still fall under the realm of Parks and Rec. Is that how it works? Or is it just a case of we get to make a decision as to moving forward with these recommendations, or we say we're not going to move forward with them?
Are you
How
talking
would
about,
that work?
are you talking about the 300 that's in capital for the liner?
Right.
Steve, you had a conversation with Kevin about what's, right?
Right, there are other things that are top priority, like replacing police cars and stuff like that. But I think they feel comfortable if you went up there with your explanation of, hey, you know, we're making a recommendation of closing East Berlin Pool, and we would like to repurpose that money to put it towards pickleball courts.
Yeah.
At East Berlin. Would that be and have the conversation, open dialogue, like, we understand that the pickleball courts would get you more utilization than the pool would. That's always open for debate. You guys just have to find a way to pontificate that to them so they bite into it and they agree where you're going.
Right.
They're not gonna just say, okay, since you decided you're not gonna go with this, we're gonna give you this. It's not an a la carte. We're not gonna play a game of chess where we're gonna shuffle
Right.
stuff around, but have the open conversation of, hey, we understand where we are. This is what we'd like to do.
And Joe, I agree with you, and that's why I say I think we need to think about options.
Yeah, that kind of gets back to your point, right?
One option is keep the pool open. We know the costs, a rough idea for capital costs, we know what the incremental operating costs are. And again, if you look at this, maybe someone could update 22 numbers, just put a column in here for 22, you know, so you have current. But you know what the numbers are to operate it as well. It's all right here. So we just attach that to that option. Another option, close the pool. But we really, you know, as we were thinking about, we really believe we need a splash pad or maybe the wading pool or whatever.
Right.
Think, what are the costs? That's what we got to tell
Does
them.
anybody know what a splash, area would cost?
I don't,
The problem with putting a splash pad there is you have to completely fill in the pool and. I
right, and
mean,
we know what the estimate
pour
is.
concrete over it, I mean, I don't even know.
Right. So to close.
Well,
the
I
pool,
think if you
see the estimate
decommission
to
a
close
pool-
the pool and abandon it. And again, this is just a rough number, 350 to 500 grand.
Right.
Which if we think it's gonna close, that's what it's gonna cost you.
Right, and we do have a splash pad elsewhere in town in Steve's capital budget, so there is a request for that, that's in the
Where's
capital
that?
budget.
Centerly parking lot, right behind community playground.
So,
Don't know.
There's probably 3 or 4 acres right behind community playground off of Worthington Ridge prior to you get to the parking lot. in
Yeah,
Richmond Lane.
yeah,
It's in Berlin Water District, it's very centrally located. We have in the capital to replace the playground there and update that, which then brings it as an all-one attraction. We have plenty of parking on the Brand New Lane, we have plenty of parking at community playground. It's actually brings the community together and we all decided it was a great idea of where we want to put it.
so
Isolating
this is
it-
the first time, I don't know if you guys have heard this, right? This is great, this is excellent, you thought it through, you even identified a place and it makes sense with the playground.
It took a long time to get to the place.
But you know what,
Kinda got-
that's
I'm
what
gonna
we,
tell you,
you know, we
Steve got
asked
there
you
by
guys
himself, so.
to provide to us, I mean,
How
this
much
is a
that
good
gonna
discussion.
cost for you to-
So we put right around, we figured right around 300,000 for the splash pad and put right around, I think the budgetary numbers that came in for the playgrounds off the 2 playgrounds, I want to say it was somewhere around 225, 250. So we're looking at $500,000, but it's taking a playground that's in disarray that needs.
The Worthington
updates
Ridge
and-
playground?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, I think we did a study of all of our playgrounds, were all done 20+ years ago, including
Yeah.
Friendship Place. So, and we've had several people come to us over the last couple of months, asking us to update them, upgrade them. We dove right into reaching out to contractors, having designs made and coming up with some budgetary numbers, so we had accurate numbers to go into our capital project with. And we feel comfortable with it. But I mean, you're looking at Friendship Place is somewhere around $550,000-$600,000 for them to replace that. That's a substantial amount of money. Playgrounds pretty much have gone up almost 75 to 100% of what they were 2 years ago.
So if you just, again, just
Yep.
big numbers, 1,000,001 with the building for Demore, for capital. You talk about a splash pad, playgrounds, 2 playgrounds for the 250, 300? One playground, okay. So playground, splash pad, 600,000, plus you have to abandon the pool, would just say the high number, 500,000 to abandon it, right?
But
And maybe that's high, but that's your $1 million, so you're just trading dollars, that's all you're doing.
I believe East Berlin Pool is located in a wetland. So we don't know what DEP requirements would be for us to demolish that pool, which I imagine we get some environmentalists involved and we'll try to do it by their recommendation. And look where the phragmites are compared to the corner of the pool. Phragmites being wetlands.
But and maybe that space, there's something else that you guys, you talk about pickleball courts, maybe. But again, those are the things that I think we should look at, and it probably will take more time than just our November meeting. I'm all for going there, but I think we need to gather a lot more information, a lot more facts, a lot more options, put together.
Can you put
These are
together
the-
right now what exactly you need from me, Debbie and Steve, in terms of information?
I want to hear options. I want to hear those ideas. I want to see, keep it open. This is what you got, Donna. These are the pluses and minuses, staffing. These are our current costs. Continue that with our capital needs, continue that. Second option. Consider a splash pad, consider, putting those monies towards playground, close the pool. Look at that option. There's other options out there, pickleball courts. What are we gonna do with the space? To Joe's point, what do we do with the money that we have right now in our budget to operate this pool? Again, if we think it should be closed.
So-
And then there's timing. Do we put it off? And if the Y goes in, which maybe next year, election year, maybe there'll be more talked about it, I don't know. But if they're gonna go down that path, or the Y, or community center, probably the Y, that's a pool. Do we wait until that point and just get by, with the liner type of thing,
Right,
you
so
know?
Debbie's budget and my budget are two different entities.
Yeah,
We're on the Parks and Grounds where we spend minimum amount of funds to run that pool and maintain that pool year. Debbie's cost to maintain and run the pool is a lot more than mine. Mine, whatever the cost is to run that pool would be absorbed into my regular general budget.
okay.
It would never change my general
No,
budget.
That's fine. We got the numbers here.
Right,
Just give me the numbers. How much does it cost to run a pool? Kevin actually, looked at this and thought,
Kevin's
other
suggestion
than
was-
building,
right.
This-
Kevin's
this-
suggestion was to us,
good
if
summer.
it's something you're going to pay anyways, you can't add that to this.
Right. But you need to understand what the costs are. And to your point, lifeguards, fringes and all that, yeah, much more. But we have those numbers. Not necessarily split by pool, but, there could be some allocation based on days or whatever you think, but. I mean, that's it. You guys are in business, right? That's the kind of stuff that at least I'm used to looking at. I don't know, for yourselves, but I don't feel comfortable right now going in front without all that other data
Just saying options.
in front of the town council. Recommending anything, keep it open or don't keep it open.
Debbie, I'd asked Jen today, and it was too late. Do we know, or can we, I'm sure you probably can, what the weekend numbers were for 2021?
I'd have to go back.
No, I'm just saying.
The pool, Dinda's not open on the weekends. Monday through
It
Friday.
was in
No,
past
no, I'm saying
years. He's asking for
2021
past
was.
years.
In 21, the pool, was it open on weekends?
Yeah.
It was, okay, sorry.
I'd have to see if I have the sheets still.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no
Well, you,
idea off the top of my
yeah,
head.
okay, that's fine. I don't know, I mean, I know you are really looking hard to find people. I don't know if it makes any sense to reach out to the swim team for kids that are,
It's not, it's irrelevant. I need older
No, no,
people. I need
the-
college kids.
okay,
We get the swim team coaches are very supportive. They encourage kids to go for their WSI,
right,
for their lifeguarding. That's not who I'm lacking. I'm lacking the older.
I
people.
understand. I was gonna say to reach out to the alumni, right, that would be older, all right, to see if they know, if they be
That's who
interested.
she had.
Debbie, to that
That's
point, even
that's her
the
staff.
seniors, I think in the past, you tried to get even seniors to think about becoming a supervisor. That's
The college kids aren't coming back from college wanting to work at the.
Her staff is
Yeah.
Berlin High School alumni. She's losing them because they're getting internships now.
Right, because they're juniors, they're completing their junior year in college, they're going. I mean, my nephew's one of them, he's got an internship already lined up next summer, so I know that 1 out of 5 is definitely not coming back. And then just, they're at that age, and I lost that 1 year of hiring because we only had one pool and I didn't need to hire. Or I might have had a few people who were in that, where I could have had another year or 2 from them. I lost that, and you can't make it up. I've tried, we've advertised last year to get older kids in, and it's a nationwide issue. It's not just
I'm sure. it's-
here, and these kids they can make more money working other places. That's the thing.
What do we
Or
normally say?
year round.
I don't know. off the top of my
Or
head.
year round at a
A
pool,
year-round
exactly.
pools, one of the things that we learned in the community senior center
Yeah.
study was year-round pools are sucking up the resources for supervision and even lifeguards. Because they can get a full year job,
Right,
right? So they're not gonna take these jobs in the
Yeah.
towns. Newington has the same problem. I mean,
Well, I
all the
was-
towns are.
New
having the
Britain,
same
New Britain
problem.
has the same problem.
I was at a conference today, and one of the sessions I was in would talk about aquatics, and Chet, Bristol said, because they have a year round, she said they struggle staffing it year round. It's an issue for everyone. New Britain said last summer, which I wasn't aware, they actually had to close sections of the pools down because they didn't have enough staff to cover. So it's not unique to our town.
Right.
It's hard when you're only hiring for an 8 or 9 week program to get the people in there. And we've been fortunate to have the staff that we've had, but it's just, there are so many other options for these kids nowadays, and
And they gotta go back to school earlier.
they
You know,
do, they
that's-
go back, yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, even look at the number of days. In 2021, Demora was open 48 days, Percival 57.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the max you're gonna get, 60 days, maybe.
How big would that splash pool be at Center Rally?
As large as 300,000 again.
Okay, I mean, I have no clue. I mean, the one in New Britain, on John Downey Drive or whatever it is, they got a big splash pool there. That's pretty cool.
That was over $1 million, they
Yeah.
got funding for that.
Yeah, there was also an old pool that they reclaimed.
That was a wading pool previously.
I think Cromwell's is right around 200,000 and there's not a lot of play elements in that.
So it's 6 elements in it.
Yeah.
Generally all over New Britain, if you really want to, compare apples to donuts. I'm serious. Us compared to New Britain as an apple versus a donut. New Britain, if you look at it, I mean, you kind of wonder how they felt like over 30 years ago when they were closing pool after pool after pool. Similar issues, funding, et cetera, staffing.
So let
You
me,
just go to almost any one of their old big, decently big parks. There's either a pool and there's a dried out pool in there with crap thrown into it, And you ask the people why, they go, government stopped funding it, we stopped, encouraging it going and blah, blah, blah. That's the only way they could explain it, because at the end of the day, you really look at it, cost overruns, this and the third, no one wanted it, conservative undertaking, they wanted to cut, hack, slash. And they went ahead and they took it from the pools first, and then they went to the education department, and then they went and they kept going further and further and further. So, until God knows where. So, at the end of the day, I think our problem is more or less, and it seems to me it's more or less a, how do we keep a decent place for these young people, while at the same time, not absolutely stretching ourselves way too thin. And if that ends up being one pool, then that's fine, but I am also looking at here, says here ADA compliance. Now this is something with me as a person as an American with a disability, this kind of peeves me a little bit that neither of them. My question is, if we were put more, because it seems like it's more used, because it's in a more populated area of town. Obviously has a lot more capacity. If we were to put all of our chips in Percival, in order to, stop the bleeding for the most part, as much as I hate to say it, what would it cost to get us up to ADA compliance? And what would it cost to, once we do abandon, if we were to abandon
So you're saying
East Berlin Pool,
as
how much would it be for,
one option, close East
Yeah,
Berlin
clean it-
Pool
clean
and
one up.
repurpose the money that is set aside in capital to Percival, as opposed to set aside that money towards the Worthington Ridge splash pad?
thank you,
Two different options.
right,
Yeah.
right.
which to me, is more of an apples to apples comparison than to a splash pad. Because then we can always take a look later on down the line, the next year, the following year, 3 years down, and say to BOF and town council, we're now busting at capacity here. Let's go ahead and let's do, say, a big splash pad to go ahead and alleviate some capacity issues later on down the line, as opposed to, which they'll take probably a lot better than going ahead and saying, okay, let's just try to hold on to everything all at once, as we're right now, singing with the Titanic here. And,
I definitely think it's another option to look at.
yeah,
Is there another option that we don't put the liner in this year, operate it with the thought that at some point next year, the council, and again, this would be something that would have to be discussed with the council. We kind of need to know, are you thinking of going with the Y? Or, with some community center, because why put the money in? And this, we discussed that from the community and senior center. Why put any money in, significant monies into these pools without knowing what the plans are? And again, it's gonna take 3 to 5 years with that facility in, if there is gonna be a facility. And if there's not, then go ahead, then look at the other options. But yes, we're gonna spend more money on water loss. We got that in the budget. So what do we lose? Other than pushing off maintenance, which I don't like to do, but knowing that there might be something else coming down the road.
If we have staffing, can we run it?
It's the same question we ask ourselves every time.
We just don't know until we try.
We just don't know until we try.
And we don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
And we
if
don't know what the waiting pool.
You don't know if we're gonna get staff.
Right.
And if
Right.
we get staff, the pool's gonna be closed anyway, I mean,
And if we
That's a
do open the
shame.
pool, we feel very strongly that we need to spend the money to open the waiting pool, because that was a huge request this year.
yeah, and so the waiting pool, right, so what are the costs to get that operational and working? Once you get that number,
What's the matter?
that can
with-
be worked into the
All the
options.
coping needs to be replaced, the floor the whole pool needs to be scraped, repainted, and new coping put in. That's where we are with that.
So there's, trying to come up with a
Change the
cost of
difference
what
or
needs.
Something like that too, right, because the pools, unless you close the pool, you can't close it. Unless you
It's
close.
either, I think if we're gonna open one, we're gonna open the kiddie pool, we have to open the big pool. If we open the waiting pool, we have to open the big pool. We can't just open the waiting pool, because that just becomes a nightmare in itself. Because you have a giant open hole with nothing there.
All right,
it's a full risk.
I think, are there any other comments or thoughts and with that then, could I ask everybody to look at their calendars? And Jen, you had a couple of weeks, which are in the next couple of weeks, for us to focus on getting over there for a visit?
Yeah, the week of the 17th or the week of the 24th, because after that, Debbie's off for a week and then I'm off for a week.
So week of the 17th is next week.
Any Tuesday for me.
What time? are you
And
thinking?
what time?
Before 2 o'clock, that's when Steve's workday ends.
2 o'clock?
After 2 o'clock?
Before 2
Before
o'clock.
two.
Oh, before?
Yeah, that's what we put in the email.
Any Tuesdays.
The 18th.
I can do the 18th or
the 18th,
25th.
I'm not here, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not the 18th either. I'm not available.
You're not available? Okay, do you need all three of you? Are you,
I think the three amigos should stick together.
Yeah, I'm off the 18th, so.
what?
I'm off the 18th, so
And we're
Off the 18th?
I know I can't do the 18th.
So
I'm here every day except Fridays.
So then Tuesday the 25th.
and who can come from staff for the 25th?
The 25th, Steve and I have a meeting from 11 to 12, but other than that,
Do you want to meet
He's
after
very
lunch?
No, he's doing before lunch, have breakfast, and all this.
do it at 9 o'clock, the first
It's
thing.
really your schedules, Tony. I mean,
9
I don't know
o'clock,
if Don
first
will be
thing.
able to make it because he works Joe.
We're meeting the 19th as well.
So I could support, like an hour or so on the 25th. Tell me what time and I could be there.
I'm good too.
You guys fix the time.
9
What
o'clock
time?
on the 25th.
9 a.m.
Okay,
I will publicize an agenda. Well, that we will meet at the pool.
great.
You don't have to come, I'll do the minutes. It'll literally- I talked to Kate and the minutes can just say, met at facility to discuss possible repairs. She said, keep it simple,
Okay,
but we do have to publicize it since it's a meeting.
and Debbie will not be there. Are you there? You're gonna be there?
25th I am. I'm not-
25th.
The 18th.
They are
three of
both
you
in the
will be
office,
there.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I have a quick question about ADA compliance. So how long can you keep running facilities that aren't ADA compliant?
Until I would imagine someone filed a formal complaint and then we get shut down. We've been grandfathered in, to my understanding,
Yes.
because the facilities were built back in the
1800s.
late sixties, early seventies, so that's
and
it's similar to the Lions pool. When the
Yeah.
Lions had the pool, it was not a traditional pool. Once they stopped operation, no one could go in and start it up again
Yeah.
because they had been grandfathered in. So it's a similar situation.
Okay.
the town does an ADA plan every year that they submit to the state, and as long as you show that you have a plan in place, for example, we have the money in the capital budget, as it shows that there is a plan in place.
Doesn't mean.
No, but that's what
If the state only knew half of it.
I know. Well, I'm sure it's every town's like this, right?
No, not every town.
Well, for the older pools.
There are a lot of
Any-
towns around us.
I'm pretty sure-
I'm pretty
Rocky
sure-
Hills,
Oh, really?
Rocky
Any
Hills
old
doing work down
facility
here.
that's
It's the newer
grandfathered
ones.
in.
I believe
The
Newington's
newer
putting
ones
a
are.
pool line around.
I thought Newington was actually.
But Rocky Hill, I know,
They're
is
better at
doing
that.
some work at that park, and then part of it, Craig was saying,
You'd be
including the
surprised.
pool, so we're all in the same situation.
Which one, Trish?
So they were looking at it. They're-
I think that's Newington, right? I think that's the
Yeah.
one that put the pool in, right?
Oh, okay.
They have the same problem.
I knew they were
Everybody-
threatened about a lawsuit. Churchill, that's the reason why.
Okay, any further comments on the discussion? Okay. I'll have one, sorry, diving board. That diving board, how long do they last? I mean, we're gonna have to replace the diving board at some point?
And we just had to
So,
refurbish, right?
yeah, no, we just pretty much bought brand new
Yeah.
ones,
Yeah.
and they were 20 years old. So we have them inspected yearly, we have two.
Right, so we got 4 more years or so, right, 96?
No, we just.
No,
No,
we
we
did
just did
We
them.
just had them because we had an injury, so we had to get those done.
Well, I thought it was removed.
That was.
That was, no, there were 2 boards at East Berlin. The diving well, again, was not
And when did we
coded for
replace it?
2.
So a couple of years ago?
No, that was taken out after my first summer. I recommended to remove that one and remove the high dive
The
from,
high dive, I remember.
because the diving
Okay.
wells are not,
Okay.
the slope on them is not compliant to what it should be, and people were getting hurt. They were scraping their faces, they were,
Jesus.
yes, it was awesome.
The recent ones was a couple of years, because you guys approved that funding out of the recreation agency.
That was just.
I
to
remember the high,
refurbish.
I remember that discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I remember jumping off.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Parks and Rec report?
I don't know if anyone has any questions. I don't have any additions since I updated this.
Are you getting good registration for your trunk and treat?
I didn't look today. I was at a conference all day, so,
Little 40 so
yeah,
far.
so we still have a week to go. We should get, I think we had 72 last year, so.
There's a huge article in the Citizen around the front page.
I
Oh,
just
good.
saw that as I was walking
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah, I saw it posted.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Yeah, so-
we've been advertising. People, a woman had just come in today to register, so. You know, you offer it. We offered that scarecrow workshop and unfortunately didn't get anyone, but
You did?
we're trying to do some different.
But we do have
things, so.
scarecrows that are going
Yeah,
up,
the
so.
scarecrows will start going up tomorrow, I think.
Okay, are you gonna put them down at the
Yeah,
foot
yeah,
here?
yeah.
Good.
Well, speaking of which, Debbie, actually, I was contacted by a member of the public. They were asking if you guys needed any help for like volunteers for any help.
I don't use volunteers, so I just, being a one-person department, I have a hard enough time with my staff. Like, to try to rein in volunteers is a little difficult.
And for the trunk or treat, we have a good amount of trunks. A lot of Debbie's staff is actually coming to do trunks, which
Yeah,
is
they love it.
really awesome. We have a good time.
We have 16 trunks right now, so. Well, I think that's one more than last year. And we'll take, I've got a couple businesses that are doing them, one insurance, someone from an insurance company, someone from a real estate company, and then New Britain Transportation is gonna have a minibus that they're gonna decorate. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great. And new staff working out?
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's
She's not on anymore, but
Yeah.
she's awesome.
7 o'clock she left.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she's great, yeah.
She's fantastic.
good. Okay,
That's great.
thank you.
Love to hear it.
I'll follow suit with Deb. Do you guys have any questions with Parks and Grounds report?
Where'd you get the signs for McGee and?
Vital signs, it was all done through the Board of Ed.
It looked nice.
We pulled out the old ones,
They paid for them?
the Board of Ed paid for everything.
They're unbelievable. That's how nice they look. They're by like.
Yeah, they're really nice. I saw Bob
one,
put
yeah.
them
I
in.
have not even seen them. I need to.
They're
go online.
unbelievable compared to that piece
Yep.
of junk that was there.
Yeah.
But thank planning and zoning, planning and zoning did a lot of hard work on that. Getting all the changes passed to be able to have the nice signs. So,
Yeah, they really. power.
Vital signs did a great job. Long process.
Mhm.
And then I included a picture of Zipadelli. And she's coming along, and I think, you know, I would ask anybody who knows anybody whose kids are involved in Little League or high school baseball or getting the word off to the athletic director or the coaches, that it just looks bad. We know it's kids, we know it's kids in the neighborhood. It just, this field's only gonna bounce back so many times, and we just put $100,000 into it. I mean, if you would have saw the way that looked in person, it was awful, and that's nothing more than vandalism. It's wrong.
To that
Cameras.
point, did you have any follow-up discussion after our last meeting with the, you want to bring that up?
Go ahead, Steven.
So we met with the police chief in Aroche. We explained all of our concerns of everything that's going on in all the facilities throughout the last year. And at first, they were very pushed back of, no, let's go with the public outreach, try to inform the field users. And we really got nowhere with that. Bro Little was really good with getting the memo and emails out to all their participants, and nothing really stopped. You know, the abuse of everything kept going. So Aroche and the police chief were on board with us looking into it. And suggested we sit down with the IT director, seeing it'll all fall under their software in the program. And Jen and I are setting up a meeting with Brian Freeman to go over that. And also, they want us to look into how hard it's going to be for us to tie into the fiber optics. Because as the fiber optics come into the scoreboard, we should be able to put ports or boosters or wireless extenders, and then piggyback all on that and make the whole complex Wi-Fi and being able to utilize, like you guys are talking about watching your kids play soccer or basketball in college. It'd be the same way. We would tap into that, and then it would be a live feed. Then the question that comes of it is, who's going to maintain it, what the policy is going to be, and who's going to monitor when something goes wrong. Currently, right now, we have several cameras throughout town that are all monitored through the police department. And we have some cameras that are just monitored closed circuit, where they have an SD card that's inside of them. You realize something happens, you go that way. Who's going to be tasked with? I know you have the ones at Prentice Place, where you get a message on your Ring camera and it comes up. The pictures aren't the clearest, but it'll show somebody's there. Who's going to enforce?
Yeah, just like you guys got the kid on McGee.
Right,
That's all we're looking for.
right.
Something simple that we can look back and.
That one at McGee was after the fact, right? They, you know,
They were
realized it was
able-
damaged,
able to
went
go
back
back
to the
to the
cameras.
camera, yeah.
Go back to the video.
Right.
And
Right, they went back to the
Find out.
cameras.
Yeah, it's
Wasn't-
a totally different conversation than it was 6 months ago, because now we have the approval and the fiber optic is going in. So now we're not looking at, let's just go out and buy a Ring camera and throw it on Stage One and throw it on Zipadelli and figure it out. Now it's, okay, let's get an actual system in place. So
Okay.
We can eventually.
they just put a new
take the
camera
cameras
system
off.
up at Town Hall,
Sage number.
they put a new one in at the senior center. So that's why they want us to meet with the IT director and kind of stay on task of what the town is doing.
The whole
I'm
world is
glad,
on
I'm glad.
camera.
Thank you, everybody in
Yeah,
the
cool.
commission for pushing and supporting you guys, and glad you went back to them and looked it up. Thanks.
So just the only question I have is, so you mentioned that you're putting in your capital budget.
Yep.
For the repair or renovation of Worthington Playground.
Yep.
Right? And coupled with that, you're also adding into that budget a splash pad?
Yep.
That's how you're doing it?
Yep.
How do you, I mean, you just come up with that on your own,
Which part?
both parts?
So the capital is designed by me of what I think our department needs are over the next 10 years. Which,
Including Parks and Rec though.
No,
Oh, the
Parks,
splash pad?
the Parks and
So you're a
Grounds.
separate.
we are a whole separate, I have nothing to do with.
So
parking
you're,
lot.
It's
so
a ground.
who
Just like
runs,
under the
So
Okay.
that's why we're beating this personal pool thing, but with this group, but you can just go out and just do what you feel is necessary,
Right.
is that right?
so the splash pad is, if there would be a splash, it's gonna be run by your department, not under Parks and Rec?
I originally put a splash pad in after Steve Kelly left, and then I kept trying to put it in, and then I was told that didn't fall under me anymore, so now I don't have any capital.
Because just like a playground or a field, it's grounds.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but Parks and Rec, that's an offering of Parks and Rec, and again, no disservice, I'm glad you're thinking like a Parks and Rec.
We are as lost as you are.
I'm just saying,
Brought
it's,
us off
guys,
guard.
it's just Parks and Rec.
It's just like the fields and the playgrounds. They are an amenity that the town of Berlin offers. The fields are maintained through the Parks and Grounds Department. Ally at the Parks and Rec Department and myself are the ones that input the field reservations and everything. But Ally also works for Steve, who works for the Public Works Department. So it's all, anything that is maintained by the grounds is going to fall under the Grounds Department. Even if it's an amenity that is offered by the town, which is considered Parks and Recreation.
So if you
See,
need
that makes
people
no
to
sense to
monitor
me.
the splash pad, it's gonna be employees.
No,
of public-
we will not recycle water. It'll be fresh water, so therefore it would not require any facility, any staffing, any
Yeah.
testing or anything. Once you
And
use the
Parks and Rec-
recycle.
It would be like Cromwell, you go whenever you want. You don't, there's not a light
No
on,
bathroom,
do
no
that, no
bathroom,
bath,
no showers,
Right.
nothing. Yeah.
right.
No changing facilities, no nothing.
Right.
You just go in there, get sprayed.
That's how
by water.
Milford's is, it's
Yeah.
adjacent
And
to
is
a
that how
playground.
other towns work it?
Some do,
That
yeah.
splash
Some-
pad
some
comes
do, some
under
don't.
their public grounds, not under Parks and Rec?
No, it's
So-
because when they moved grounds out from
Yeah.
under Park and Rec, then that's kind of how the separation happens.
No, I'm talking about other towns though. How do they do it?
A lot of them, Park and Rec are together, but here, Parks and Rec are two different departments.
Like Cheshire, the grounds department is under Public Works as well. So anything that is maintained by the grounds, which is playground equipment and fields, it falls under the grounds, which falls under Public Works. But the rec department is the one that
So-
puts in the reservations.
You have no commission oversight. In other words, you don't have to talk to anybody to submit any of that.
No, all the
Just go ahead
fields,
and do it.
parks and playgrounds fall under the Parks and Recreation Commission. You guys oversee the fields, parks and playgrounds.
So,
So then how is he submitting? a
so
budget
what,
without-
shouldn't we,
It's,
we'd like to
he's not
understand.
submitting a
And then,
budget, he's submitting.
people on Facebook go ahead and start shouting at the top of their lungs and say, how come our playgrounds are, so much more crap than say this one or this one or this one or Portland or here or there. I hate, and it boils my
Still,
bloody blood.
still.
And I'm sitting on this commission saying, okay, what do we have unless of course we're a castrated horse? So, please tell me.
We still have
Steve is
that.
putting
Our
ideas
commission
into.
still has it.
Steve is putting ideas into the 10-year capital plan.
So-
When one of his projects is, by some miracle, is funded by coming to fruition, he brings that project to you guys as the commission. That's how all our fields get funded. Sage One
Okay.
got funded
But
because
also-
it was, because Steve put it in his capital plan.
So
When we got the funds, we
Let me-
brought it here and we discussed it.
The demands.
So this is how it goes. We all sit in this room. You guys bring up topics. You
Yes.
bring up things you want to see done. I take go home, write it down. When it comes into the capital plan of where we want to put it, I take your suggestions and I put it into my capital plan. Then my capital plan goes to the Director of Public Works. From Director of Public Works, it goes to the Finance Department for my 10-year capital plan. Including in my 10-year capital plan is all the vehicles inside the grounds departments. Like the trucks, the mowers, the sidewalks inside the schools, the playgrounds inside the schools. Everything is all encompassed into my 10-year capital plan. It's not just ball fields or playgrounds or a splash pad. It's everything. It's anything that's grounds related. If something needs to be done in open space, that goes into it. Future bike trails goes into mine. Walking trails at Pistol Creek goes into mine. All of this is in my 10-year capital plan. Yes, you guys are a portion of the decision that goes in my 10-year, but there is so much more outside of
Yes.
just Park and Rec Commission that goes
So
into the
can
capital.
I ask, so I know a couple of years ago, and we haven't done it in the last year. We relooked at the 10-year capital plan. And I think it's important for our commission, who does have oversight over parks, okay, so you're not out of it. You still have, that we understand what people are putting in before it goes to budget for parks and rec. And again, to get your
But Parks and
thoughts,
Rec is
make
back.
sure, maybe
Yeah.
there's some ideas that the
Well,
commission has that we haven't
I
brought
know,
up.
we didn't see you last month. Those two ladies came in a few months ago
Yep.
complaining about the park.
Yep.
But when we talked about it, it was, well, that's not in the budget.
Right,
And it was just.
it wasn't
dead-
even,
It sounded like a dead horse.
Right.
We told them to go to the Berlin Lions Club. That's what we sent them off here.
That's not true. We told them to get in touch with Steve and
We told them
provide
to
him,
Draw up a
provide
plan,
him with some
Well, we
ideas,
don't
and I
talk to
believe
some
they
people.
did reach out to
And
them.
but
But
it
they never
was,
did.
it was dead. It was like, seemed like dead, so. to
it
hear you
didn't,
say
it
that
didn't
you're
seem as if
renovating
it was gonna be
a
put
park
into
is
a budget.
surprising.
Glad to hear it.
Renovating versus putting it in a 10-year capital plan, totally different.
I don't know what the
No, no, no.
semantics are of that. I mean.
10-year
you know,
capital plan prioritized,
Right.
right? We do have priorities. And that's where we can help push things, like the softball field got, done, things like that. I think this commission is owed that information prior to going to submit it.
Well,
Just
what's
give
the
it to
point of
us.
Having a splash pad at the old East Berlin pool when you're putting up a brand new one, within 2 miles of it.
So despite, don't hold me to the thing, but I believe the splash pad for community playground is 2025. So that'd be next year, or 2 years from now.
Yeah.
You think that
2000
if
No,
we
no.
say to them, don't spend the money on the liner, spend the money on tearing down a building and put a splash pad, they're gonna say, oh, Tony, that's a great idea. Let me write you. a
So the way I
It might be
understood the
in-
conversations that we had regarding my capital plan, was you guys had said when Bruce, Trevethan, was that your big focus was redoing the tennis courts in East Berlin, creating them into pickleball courts. So that's where I put in my 2024 is pickleball courts and redoing the playground that you guys said was in the shambles at Little People's Playground. On top of that, I have vehicles in there. So, I have our primary snow removal machine that's in there.
And
So that's
again,
all in.
can you
Just
share
to
that
say-
information with
I
us
know, it's
again?
really good to hear you saying all
It
that,
is.
because that's surprising.
We should see it. Jen, we should see whatever you guys have in your.
We don't have
10-year
any
I don't
suggestions
have,
for our 10-year
they told me
capital.
that there's nothing that I. would
You have
fall
no
under.
10-year capital plan. You have no thoughts about what we should do as Parks and Rec going out for 10
No,
years.
because that would be Steve.
Okay, but collectively,
I'm not saying you're asking to see ours. Debbie does not submit a 10-year capital plan.
what do you do, Jen, for capital?
Budget.
Do you submit anything?
No, my department.
So everything is going under Steve.
Yes.
Right. My 4 departments do not have anything in the 10-year capital
For
plan.
Parks and Rec, there is nothing.
Correct.
Isn't there some things that we want to think about doing
Who would
as a
maintain
Park
it?
and Rec?
Who would maintain it?
No, they told me that nothing falls under my responsibilities. It would fall under.
I see
Parks
where
and
they-
Okay,
Rec.
and
Because they
that's fine, but you
bifurcated it
guys
so that
hopefully
you
would
can
have
tell on
input
it.
to that.
Yes, we work very closely with
Right.
them.
And absolutely. All right,
So I
show
guess
us
the
what you
bottom
got.
line-
I mean, field
Can you just
improvements.
tell
each
Show
of
us
our-
what you
what
got.
you're planning on, so that when we have this and you make a offhand kind of side door comment about what you're doing, we're not all sitting here going, wow, really? Because that's how I felt.
I have
Wow.
the last 10-year budget
If you're
or
planning
capital
on
plan
renovating
that was
the,
presented to us,
That's
but it's a
awesome.
couple years old. So whether it was yours, I guess it was yours or your
Yeah,
department's,
'cause
whatever,
ground
I would
hasn't been
like-
under me in a long time.
if we could see that. And again, we have to push aside all the stuff that you talk about that's outside our.
Remember, I was given what, 11 days? You were given 11 days?
We were given two
2 weeks.
working weeks to put together a capital.
So
plan.
I don't
It's
meet
due
with you guys for
tomorrow.
those 2 weeks.
The capital plan is due tomorrow.
and that's fine, Steve.
In
I'm not
November,
saying I
in
want to,
November, just give us what you presented.
I don't want to step in your process
Right, so as soon as we
whatsoever.
get, as soon as we get it back from Kevin with all the updated, then I'll bring it back to you.
That's all we want.
Okay, fine.
Tell me what you got approved and what's in it, where.
It won't be. approved.
Everything is technically approved to go
Right.
on the 10-year plan. Funding is not approved until
Right,
budget
right,
season.
But there's priorities, and of course, the capital budget committee, they base it on, their decisions are based on safety, blah, 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 blah. But that's where the will of the people go to these meetings, and they start talking about projects that they want done. And that's where our commission can help. So,
Well, hell, it
But I
doesn't even,
do
it doesn't even
think-
need to be once a year either. I
just
mean,
on the
people come
pool
up to
though,
us with
also,
programs all the time.
think about that as an option. I like your idea of the playground, but maybe, the wading pool and a splash over there is the way to go. I don't know, but I ask you to think about that as well. Okay. Thanks.
Next item is yours, Donna. That's what you asked me to put on.
Well,
It just
well,
astounds
what does it say here under 17, playgrounds, tours? What does that mean?
Donna asked me to
So
put
we,
that on.
so
Are we
at the last meeting, I asked everybody to think about places that they would like to visit and that we could do a couple. We already have one scheduled now for the pool.
Yep.
But are there other places that you want to visit in the near future? Do we want to put it off till January? But I want it on the agenda so that we actually go out and visit places and understand issues. If the staff has thoughts about issues that are there, Steve, you're the most knowledgeable about that area, I guess. So if there's issues that you would think it would be behoove us to see it before it's discussed at a meeting, that's what I'm looking.
Okay,
So if there are places, you don't have any right now, we can put it off, but we'll discuss it in November and start setting dates. Okay, that's what that meant.
Just know that every time we do meet at a facility, it is a sanctioned meeting and
Right.
minutes will be taken.
Right.
So,
so what's the language? Okay. Gotcha.
and we only have budgeted for a certain amount of meetings throughout the year, which are regularly scheduled meetings. So if we were to start going to like 1 month, adding an extra meeting and going to the facility, we would have to split up, so it wasn't a sanctioned meeting because we could never afford to have a secretary for 2 meetings a month.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
That was exciting.
State of Connecticut grant update is not too different. Our architects working on conceptual designs. And we are having a follow-up meeting with the athletic director and the principal to discuss those conceptual plans. And then they are going to look at some dates to do their not survey, geotech borings and report. So that we'll have to get them on the field. So they're gonna let us know dates so we can make sure that we coordinate with the high school, so like no gym classes or practices are happening at that time. So we are moving along. The plan is to go out to bid after the first of the year.
So there's no work scheduled at Scalise at this present time?
Whatever,
Fiber optics.
whatever the last update I gave you is the only update I have.
It's late too, right?
It didn't say.
It's been
It's
delayed.
It was delayed, yeah.
Then it got pushed off.
So,
I can ask him for another update before our November meeting.
Right, I did ask Jen, following that memo that where it said it's been pushed off to the end of November, beginning of December, I think, for the fiber optics now. Does that have any impact on the scoreboard? And I knew they were two separate, and he came back, said they're two separate projects. One doesn't impact the other. So I think for the scoreboard, it's just, if you could give us their timeline for both projects, that would be helpful. And just, if you can just update it once a month before we come in, and
Yeah.
if there's any major issues, let us know ahead of time.
And that's why I'm sending you his emails
Do whatever you want.
that's why I'm sending you guys emails instead of waiting until the next time we meet. So
Yeah.
just,
Because if there's any questions, individually.
yes, you have all gotten so much better with not having lengthy conversations on
Right.
email. So I thank you for that. Everyone has been emailing me individually with questions. When I send something out like that, I'm going to continue to send Doug updates. If you have questions, email me individually. You guys have all gotten a lot better with that. So thank you.
I've taken it upon myself to now instead just decide to, but if I ever really need to ask a question, I'll just walk to your office.
Yeah, that's what,
Greg does it every day.
every day.
Not every day.
No, it's every day.
No, it's not. It's not every day.
Yes.
No, but I call you.
Call me
Yeah.
twice.
And if anyone else wants me to visit their office, just, let me know.
I would like you to visit the office when you have the baby, please, with the baby.
Of course,
Yes,
of course.
So just one other question, any update, at the last meeting, Tony mentioned the health inspector had mentioned about the kitchen needs updating. It's in our minutes that we just.
Forwarded that information to Doug.
I'm sorry?
We forwarded that information to Doug.
And so, and just forward it, okay, so maybe
So
there's
that
3
he
things
has
to get an
knowledge of
update
it.
from Doug on that. And, again, it's in our minutes, somehow we have to answer that and say, does it need updating? What's the position of the town? It'd be nice to know. Maybe he can get in touch with the health inspector to understand what the details are and go from there, because maybe that has to go into the capital
I'm
budget.
sure it's not-
I'm pretty
But
sure
Doug,
it is.
I think it's in, I'm
the
trying to pull it up now.
Yeah,
sure
I'm
he's not
pretty
gonna
sure it is in
reach out to the
there.
guy and say, what do you want? he's gonna wait for the guy to, Jeff to come to him.
Great, yeah, no, but you have, I'll say, an
You got-
unhealthy,
you got tipped off.
unsafe place, and now it's in your minutes, you gotta,
Oh, is there
Follow
money
it
in there
through.
in the capital budget? to
and
fix
close
that?
it out in
To
our
upgrade
minutes.
the kitchen?
That's-
I think there's, yeah, I think it's in the capital to upgrade that.
That's in a capital improvement plan
I believe so, yeah.
for
I believe
the
I remember seeing it
kitchen upgrade or
under,
the full
under
building or
facilities, yeah.
Not the whole building.
No, the
just the
concession,
kitchen?
the concession, I think.
Probably during September and October.
For you, we'll do it in August.
But see,
That's good.
that's good, if that's in there,
I'm pretty,
be
yeah,
nice to
I think
answer it in
please
our
check, and I'm
meetings.
pretty sure I saw it in
and
there.
understand when, so that we don't have an issue like we did before, so all that's set for timing.
You didn't have an issue, right? You didn't have an issue, it was just a comment he made.
It was a comment. he
Yeah.
The
made.
timing was the
He
issue.
didn't shut you down that day or
No.
anything.
No,
I
Yeah.
was
the
there for
timing
that
was-
So it wasn't an
inspection,
issue.
and we just talked and
Yeah.
he just came out with it.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, man, this place is. I said, well, I'm sure they'll, eventually goes, no, I have the power to do it. That's what he says to me, so.
Yeah.
But what do I know about it? I don't know about it. Okay,
Tony, have you seen the ice cream man at Sage at all?
no,
Greg, have you?
No,
Okay, I was just curious.
no,
That was my only off the agenda question. I
And
had.
then, Jen, the information that you sent to Tony on
I can
payments or
forward.
whatever, if you could just disseminate that to everybody, that'd be great. For the
Um,
pools.
while we're just talking about that, she'll send it out to you, but, the naming of it. I thought it was pretty interesting. You guys know who this pool is named after?
Yes, veterans,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
people that actually
So
died.
they gave me the info that it was in honor of Michael Denmore, Michael Dinda, and Robert Bittner Jr. They were three Berlin men who were killed in the Vietnam War in 1969.
Yep. Yeah,
Is there a plaque
Yeah,
there?
when you drive in, there's this little circle with the flag and the
Yeah, it's right
plaque.
above the
It's,
front.
the plaque is, actually has the names listed alphabetically, so it's
Okay.
Bittner, the more Dinda. not-
Which is
I don't know why it
interesting.
was-
something to think about, right? That certainly should go into a report to the council.
Yeah.
You know, what happens to the name
Right.
if you were to close,
I agree.
then yeah. you know.
Might be a might
What
also
would
be
we
a
do?
suggestion.
Name
What
that
would we
park.
do?
Name that, because there's still tennis courts and stuff, so just
Yeah.
maybe name that
Right.
complex.
Exactly.
I was gonna
Perfect.
say,
It's like when we
Turns
renamed
on
Personal
real
Field to
help.
Beretta, we changed it to Personal Park.
Does the Hubbard Park have a name already?
Parks Group.
Clark's Grove is, yeah, Clark's
So
Grove
it's
is,
dedicated to,
Clark's Grove is by the fire department. That's separate than where the tennis courts are by the
okay.
The
separate
The
area.
Yeah.
playground
East
at the
Berlin,
school
yeah.
isn't named after,
It's not
it's
named.
just Hubbard School Playground. And it's Hubbard, it's known
on
as
the
Hubbard
school
Field.
property.
Okay,
But again, those are,
so. it could be
I think
moved.
that is something though, that's a fair point. We gotta make sure we cover that in the report. Whatever the recommendations are.
as an aside, just a kudos to Steve's department, all the flowers that these guys grow and put in around town. I mean, if you've noticed, aside from around the complex here, I mean, they're great. If over at Zipadelli around the flag, okay, over at Hubbard, right by the baseball field, by the little signage there. End of Patterson Way, they put a big cement thing in there and they water, the plants look great. I mean,
They do.
that's the best they've looked.
With all the drought
Right.
issues and everything, yeah.
These
No,
guys-
they,
Water truck.
department does. a great job.
Thank you, I will pass the word on.
You guys do a great job.
They spend a lot of time in the greenhouse.
That sounds like fun.
That's all right.
My Droid phone will not let me slide over on the Excel spreadsheet. to give me-
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, that's fun.
You can let us know. All right. Any other
Droid.
comments, questions, Joe? Okay. Anybody else here? Any comments, concerns? Other?
One thing, so you love this. So talking about the pools and capital, where do we stand on where Percival is right now? On where they are, what they need, what they should have, aside from the ADA compliance? I don't know, I'm just asking.
I believe facility has $750,000 in the 10-year capital plan
Right.
for the upgrade of the building. And grounds has 150 for the pool decking. those areas.
What year though? Now,
I don't know what year Doug's is in for.
listen, all I'm saying, we tend to put things off, you know,
Yeah.
and so, I mean, and
It's
we.
not
think-
we,
Well, no, the town, not us, right?
like Debbie said, the pool buildings have been in there for 20.
I think when he speaks in the royal we,
Right,
as in government.
right,
Right, right.
but, you know, so I mean, somehow, it, you know, it needs to be I don't know, managed better or something, at least more say gets into it. Like, I think if you went to the people that lived in East Berlin and say, hey, they're thinking about closing down the pool, I bet you they would go to and say something about it, right? I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm just saying,
I
Well,
think
once you
tonight's
decide, you
meeting-
should leak that out. on
I think
the
tonight's
buzz.
meeting will, it's documented.
I don't think it would be a bad idea to ask the question.
Yeah.
Either.
Somebody should post
Do
it
you
out
think
there.
there is a better use for that space, or do you think, given, given other external circumstances due to the fact that maybe usage just went down, would you use it more if we could put more money into it, et cetera, different things like that, just figure out a way to word the question. And then Donna, I hate to say it, but you kind of pulled the short straw being the chair of
I didn't say
this
it.
commission, putting it up. And, we could go ahead as commissioners, go ahead and share that around, Rome Buzz, whatnot. And just say, hey, listen, all comments that are, all comments would be more than appreciated, and try just to keep it, civil.
I know.
Beware of what you ask for.
Right.
See,
You
I
get all
think-
this-
I think
we'll
you
get a
have to
lot of
below.
Because then if people ask and you don't do anything, it'll hit you.
If you
right back
ask
at you.
me, and I
That's the
lived in
only
East
issue.
Berlin, do I want?
But the only way we're gonna
Yeah.
know is by going to the people
Do
though,
I
and that's
do?
another
No.
issue, is that we're so darn afraid of our own shadow in this government, mostly because it works so darn slow. That, we're afraid to actually go out and listen to people anymore.
No, no,
And this
no,
is
no.
what ticks me off about council. Council thinks it likes to play the nanny state here. And it goes, we know best with this, and we know best with that. Let's shove this and let's do that, and blah, blah, blah. And, the people don't give a, rats, what. When in reality, that's not exactly at all what I hear, when folks come to me and say, what's this person on? What's that person on? What's going on here? A lot of folks, I didn't even know that was happening. Why doesn't the town talk to us? Mostly because I think they don't want to, they really want to half of us want to put our bloody heads in the sand and pretend that nothing, that there's nothing outside of our purview. In reality, we should be listening. We should not be afraid of people, yeah, you're gonna get that troll. At Monday morning, you're gonna get the Tom Stern fella who's gonna be like, this, that, the other thing, Obama's fault, things like that. You're gonna have that type of guy, but you always have that type of guy. No matter where, you could have a gigantic outdoor rally and you're gonna have someone that's gonna yell you stink. That happens all the time. We can't be afraid of that
Andrew,
in order to know what's going
I
on.
know, we can't control everything, but I will tell you that I think this commission, and I know this department, is always willing to listen to people and people's thoughts. And I would hope, and that's why I don't believe that in November would be able to make a decision, because I think it might be too quick. We need to gather all the facts and be able to speak to facts when and if people do come and speak to us. And we should listen to them, no doubt. And you can bet by this being on the agenda tonight and, word of mouth, people are gonna get hold of this, and I would expect we're gonna hear things, and that's good. Because they might have ideas, but then at the same time, we need to project or to present the facts to them as well. Whether or not they'll listen to it is another thing, but then we have a role to play as, in my opinion, as well as staff. And I personally will look to staff too. When we look at these options, you come up with the options and we all think about it and you have some costs with it, that the staff would then be in a position to say, because you guys know better about the usage of the pools and everything, you know better what other towns do, what new things are coming into towns. And that I would look to staff to make some type of recommendation or pin down the options. And again, in the end, it will be the council to decide. But we all have a responsibility to move it forward and to listen before we make that decision, so.
Thank you, Tom. But at the same token, though, I'd like to also say, it should also be behooving to government to actually go ahead and ask questions as well of its people and say, what would you, we just want to hear
And we are,
back. We just
this
want to hear.
commission is, and that's, what we can control. We can't control anybody else. To your point,
Just
I
just
suggest
saying,
you go
throw
to
the
those
question out
meetings and
there.
say something.
That's all.
All right, any other comments, questions?
I will make a motion.
All right, motion to adjourn,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Take care, everybody.
Hopefully we'll
Thank
see you in
you.
person sometime.
Yeah, hey, Joe, yeah.
Yeah.
You go to the golf commission in person, come on down here.